Happening now on Grid Tonight. Pietro Fittipaldi came out of nowhere to get a full-time IndyCar seat with Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing in 2024. Was he the right choice, or did the team make a mistake by not choosing Juri Vips? A fire inside the Formula E paddock caused preseason testing to come to a halt in Valencia. What caused this fire, and should the teams be concerned about problems with the battery? Andrea Kimi Antonelli is skipping Formula 3 and going straight into Formula 2 in 2024. Can the Mercedes junior driver continue his domination of the junior racing categories by winning the Formula 2 title next year? Hello to all our viewers watching here in the United States and around the world. Welcome to Grid Tonight, your weekly motorsports news program. I'm Kobe Lambert from the Podium Finish. With me, Matt White from Grid Endurance Performance Index. We encourage everyone to comment in the chat below, ask questions, and consider supporting us through Super Chat. Now, Matt, take it away with our top story this evening. We have a lot of open wheel racing stories to talk about today.
Yeah, plenty of single-seater stuff to get into. Good evening, Kobe. Good evening, everybody, wherever you're watching around the world. Plenty of news and bits and pieces to get our teeth into tonight. And we'll start with IndyCar, which is our lead-off story on Grid Tonight this week. And Haas F1 reserve driver Pietro Fittipaldi will make a shock return to the NTT IndyCar Series in 2024. He'll be full-time in the number 30 Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing Honda. He has 9 IndyCar starts previously under his belt going into next season. He made his series debut in 2019. He hasn't competed in IndyCar since May of 2021 when he finished 25th in his only start at the Speedway for the Indianapolis 500. Fittipaldi brings a diverse racing background after previously competing in Formula One, DTM, IMSA, WEC, the European Le Mans Series, Super Formula, and many more. Graphic on screen courtesy of Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing. Toby, was not on my radar at all. This was Pietro Fittipaldi on your radar to be back in IndyCar next year?
Not at all. Like, Pietro Fittipaldi was like one of the last drivers I'd expect to be hunting for an IndyCar seat for next season. I know he has previous experience in IndyCar as you mentioned. I remember he ran part-time with Delcoin Racing, but he didn't get to compete in as many races as he liked to that year, because you remember he had that horrible crash at Spa-Francorchamps in that Dragon Speed LMP1 car and broke both of his legs, and he ended up missing a whole bunch of time. And when he got back in the car, he wasn't completely comfortable. I was reading some articles earlier in the week about Pietro's situation, talking about how he had to take painkillers and all that, how he couldn't really, drive at 100% during the rest of that season. Although he did get a top 10 at the Grand Prix of Portland, Great Network's home race. That was a really solid effort for him, but it was a real struggle down the stretch as he was returning from that injury. And then when I think it was just a couple of years ago when I believe he was running the oval races and Grosjean was running the road and street course at the time, when Fittipaldi got to run at Texas and the Indianapolis 500 there. Yeah, so he does have quite a bit of oval racing and road and street course experience under his belt in IndyCar. And I really think this will be a great opportunity for him to show what he can do in a full-time seat. I know Ben Haas Formula One reserve driver is great, but we haven't really seen, Pietro Fittipaldi, truly solidify himself in the racing world, like actually racing, week in and week out, rather than, just being a reserve driver and working on the simulator. I know Fittipaldi's gotten some opportunities in sports car racing, but IndyCar, I feel like that this is finally at 27 years old, this Brazilian American driver is finally going to be able to have an opportunity to show what he's made of in the NTT IndyCar Series next year. And another point Fittipaldi made was really interesting. Back in 2019, when he made his IndyCar debut that season, he felt like he wasn't truly ready to be an IndyCar driver yet. But after spending time in sports cars, other racing series, as you mentioned, Matt has a diverse racing background, spending time with the Haas F1 team in a simulator and all that, he feels like he's truly ready to seize this opportunity in this moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And it came a bit of a bolt out of the blue. Of course, he's replacing Jack Harvey, who didn't finish out the year in the 30 car, and with Fittipaldi replacing Jack and joining Christian Lundgaard and Graham Rahal at RLL, they're expected to return. It left some people wondering about Juri Vips. On a call with members of the media, RLL co-owner Bobby Rahal said that Vips will remain under contract with the team in 2024. RLL hopes to enter him in an unspecified number of races in a fourth entry if they can find the funding. In an article written by Race.com's Marshall Pruitt, Rahal introduced Vips to some LMP2 teams in the IMSA paddock to potentially give Vips an opportunity to run some sports car races next year. And of course, LMP2 in the IMSA paddock is going to be stout next year because he's going to be one of the top categories. Vips impressed during his 2 race weekends at Portland, at Laguna Seca at the end of the season. Do you think that he should have received the call up for the 30 ride over Fittipaldi?
Well, I certainly think that, regardless of the team, based on what we know of Juri Vips' background in motorsports, he was a Red Bull Junior driver, and I thought he was very impressive in those 2 races at Portland and Laguna Seca. Thought he showed a lot of speed for someone who had not been in a race car for a while. So I think based on those 2 races alone, I think he deserved to be somewhere in IndyCar full time in 2024. But unfortunately, it just didn't work out with Rahal here. Yeah, we know Rahal is probably going to have some of the same sponsors that was on the 30 this year. Some of the team sponsors on the car, and we all know Pietro Fittipaldi also brings some funding as well. So that might have played a factor there. That Pietro might have been bringing some more funding compared to Juri Vips. But I think if Juri Vips is patient enough, he'll eventually find his opportunity to race in the NTT in the IndyCar Series. And as we've learned, Bobby Rahal decided to keep Juri Vips under contract instead of letting him go elsewhere. Sometimes, loyalty and patience will be rewarded, and maybe they'll be able to find some funding for Juri Vips to put him in a 4th car for some races in 2024. Probably not going to be full-time at this late in the game. I know at this point in the year, you really have to know what you're doing for 2024 to get a full-time program open. But if Juri can get some additional races, maybe something will open up for him in the following year in 2025. So, yeah, and I also think it's really good that he's been introduced to some LMP2 teams. You certainly want to, fill your schedule when you're not handling your reserve driver duties with Rahal. So I think an LMP2 program would be really good to keep Juri fresh.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say before, the Brazilian money, I'm sure, has come with Pietro potentially, and what sponsors he'll bring to that team over Vips, who, as we said, I thought he was very impressive at Portland and at Laguna Seca, considering there are 2 tracks he'd never been to before, and he'd had obviously limited experience in the car and the series going into those 2 weekends. So it'll be interesting to see where Juri lands, and if they've got him under contract, is he kind of in a reserve-y kind of role potentially, and if they can get some bits and pieces together for him to run more races in what would be then a 4th car, as we mentioned. We'll have to wait and see. So that's the IndyCar top story. We've had some, odd to say, pre-season testing going on in October, but we have had it, Kobe, and it was in Valencia this week.
Yeah, kind of odd to have this type of story break out from preseason testing for season 10 of the ABB FIA Formula E World Championship, which got underway this week in Valencia. But there was no on-track running today after a fire broke out in the paddock area. And in this statement right here, you see on the screen, Formula E said, in response to an incident earlier today at Formula E preseason testing in Valencia when a fire caused damage to a garage in the pit lane, on-track testing activity will not go ahead tomorrow, Wednesday, which was today. Damage from the incident was contained following the activation of emergency procedures. 1 person was taken to the hospital as a precaution, but released without treatment. An investigation into the cause of the incident is ongoing, but has already identified an issue which has been addressed. The investigation and further safety assessments will be completed, and we aim to resume on-track activities from Thursday, subject to final confirmation tomorrow. And according to Jack Cousins from the race, the fire broke out in the box occupied by battery provider WAE, formerly known as Williams Race Engineering. The incident happened during the lunch break between the 2 test sessions scheduled for Tuesday. The race said the cause of the fire is believed to be related to the DS Penske that was being driven by Robert Schwartzman. At the time, a Gen 3 battery taken out of the car, then it was transported from the DS Penske garage to WAE for inspection. Losing this valuable testing time is not ideal for the Formula E teams. We've come a long way in the development of the electric open wheel racing series with the batteries. We started off with drivers using 2 different cars per race, down to 1 and saving enough energy just to make the finish. Now we have this battery fire as we transition to a new era of live pit stops with fast charging energy boosters in place of your traditional refilling from regular racing series that you see all over the world. So Formula E plans to resume testing tomorrow at 2 p.m. Central European time. Link to the race article in the video description below. So Matt, how concerning is it to see this fire, and does it signal a bigger problem with the batteries?
Well, if you're across kind of world news and UK news, you may have heard the story about the big fire that happened at Luton Airport a couple of weeks ago, which destroyed a multi-story car park and 1,200 vehicles that were in it. And that, by the sounds of things, was caused by a plug-in hybrid Land Rover. So this is the second battery-related fire in, car news in less than 2 weeks. It's the second Williams-related fire in Spain, of course, after they won that Spanish Grand Prix with Pastor Maldonado in 2012. They had the fire in the garage then, and they're back in Spain, and there's another Williams fire, which is odd that it happens, but good to see that no one was hurt. Obviously, is the first port of call on that one, and we've had no injuries. They kind of turned today into a bit of a media day, and testing will, as you said, resume. Was going to be all day tomorrow, but now it looks like the morning has been lost, so we're going to have the afternoon running. Antonio Felix da Costa was fastest on Tuesday for the information. He was the quickest man on Tuesday, but obviously then we had the incident. So it is concerning. I guess it's just one of those things, but in the early days of fuel, we saw so many fires in Formula One, didn't we? Of course, that Jos Verstappen one at Hockenheim Springs to mind straight away. So these things can happen from time to time. It is a bit of a shock when it does. Strange to see it happen in this day and age of health and safety and all those kind of things. But as I said at the top, good to see that nobody was injured in it, and hopefully we can get the rest of the test done without incident. Of course, Formula E start their season in January in Mexico, where the Grand Prix for Formula One is this weekend. One quick Formula E tidbit before we move on. I had a back and forth exchange on X, the Bird app, Twitter, whatever we're calling it nowadays, today with Tom Brooks, who was the Formula E World feed commentator for the last couple of races last year. He posted a tweet with the quoted a tweet from Andretti with their drivers in their new attire for the year, some merch, and he used the comment that the Andretti merchandise for this year was the flame emoji, which I responded, it's probably not the best idea to be using that this week. And he took it down and said, yeah, good point, well noted. I did ask him if he was coming back next year to commentate, and he said he wasn't sure. There was an article from Sam Smith at the race, also on the race.com today, about what's happening with the UK coverage of Formula E next year, because that's up in the air because Channel 4's deal has come to an end. So hopefully we can get some kind of that sorted in short order, because we've got all of the Formula E broadcast changes with Vernon Kay stepping away. We all know what happened to Jack Nicholls and Nicole. I can't remember her name now. The lady that was doing it, she's off on maternity leave. So lots of things to play out in Formula E broadcast land, but hopefully that can all be sorted, and hopefully we can get through the rest of this test without any more incidents of this nature. We can get cars on track tomorrow, and then I don't believe that, unless there's some private testing, but this big group test is the only one before the cars are packed off to Mexico for the start of the season on the second weekend of January. So looking forward to that. Of course, we'll keep you abreast of all Formula E news between now and Christmas, and then, of course, in the new year once the season gets back underway. Back to the NTT IndyCar paddock, though, Kobe, where we have more driver news.
And before we get into the IndyCar stuff, just wanted to bounce off what you were saying about the Formula E fire. Hopefully, that's just a one-time isolated incident. Yeah. And I'm sure they're gonna figure it out, find out what went wrong to make sure that doesn't happen again. Because anytime you see a fire anywhere, it's always really scary, especially seeing a fire in the paddock that big. Something that we really don't see often. You also brought up a good point. I was also reading about the TV deal coming to an end in the UK. We know the Formula E fan base is quite large in the UK. So if they start next season with that Formula E coverage, like, what are you guys going to do? That's not really a good thing at all. But I'm sure that they're going to be working around the clock 24/7 leading up to the season to make sure that they'll give the UK Formula E fans something for next year. I'm sure they're definitely going to get it done, because they don't want to leave one of their biggest group of supporters from that country lost in the dark, not being able to watch the Formula E races. And now moving on to the IndyCar news you just alluded to, 2023 Indy Next champion Christian Rasmussen will graduate to the NTT IndyCar Series in 2024. While he won't be racing full-time, Rasmussen earned a part-time ride in number 20 at Carpenter Racing Chevrolet. A few weeks ago, Rasmussen tested with the team alongside former IndyCar driver Oliver Askew and ended up getting a big promotion. Rasmussen will be in the number 20 Chevrolet for all the road and street course races, while team owner Ed Carpenter will continue driving the ovals. We'll also see Rasmussen behind the wheel of a third ECR Chevy in the 108th running of the Indianapolis 500, graphic courtesy of Ed Carpenter Racing. So, Matt, after seeing Linus Lundqvist spend most of 2023 on the sidelines, how refreshing is it for this year's Indy Next champion to get a guaranteed spot on the 2024 IndyCar grid?
Yeah, I think we were all quite disappointed that Linus, after winning the last Indy Lights Championship, as was, ended up sitting out most of last season. Of course, came in to replace Simon Pagenaud when he got injured towards the end, and now he's got the big call up for this coming season, 2024. So it all ended up working out for Linus in the end, but very pleased to see Christian get this deal done. He's been one of the standouts, if not the standout, in Indy Next this year, and has been dovetailing that with some very good runs in sports car racing on the IMSA side, especially in the long distance races. So really good to see this happen. Good evening to Matthew Owens, who says if you go to the 500 in an ECR car, you're going to be fast, especially on pole day. Yes, we've seen that from obviously Ed Carpenter down the years and Rinus VeeKay as well in qualifying. So we'll see what happens to Christian Rasmussen. It's good to see, as I said, this deal come together. It's a little bit disappointing that it's not for the full season, especially with a lot of the ovals packed into that later portion of the year. You think of Gateway, the double at Milwaukee towards the end of the season. So we're not going to see him too much at the end of summer, but we're going to enjoy him while we can through the spring and all the way through before the Olympic break. Basically, he will be. I feel like he'll be one of those guys that just pops up now and again and contends for a good top 10 in the first few races, get his feet under. He did that in Indy Next 2 seasons ago, and then came out this year and dominated the field and won the championship with one race to spare. So really good to see that this deal is happening, and that the ladder system in the IndyCar paddock continues to do what it's supposed to do, and that's promote champions through. We talked about Miles Rowe a couple of weeks ago, getting the ride into Indy NXT for next season, and this season's champion is on his way up too. So good to see that ladder system is continuing.
Yeah, definitely. It's great to see the ladder system working as it's intended to. I'm sure Christian Rasmussen would rather, be full-time and compete for the championship and all of that. But, sometimes you got to walk before you run. And if this is the best opportunity that he's got, to run all the road and street courses and the Indy 500 on top of that, I think that's a really good deal for him. So he can prove for 2025 that he should be running full-time in the NTT IndyCar Series. Yeah, I think Christian Rasmussen certainly has the talent, where he could get a top 10 finish in his rookie season in IndyCar. But I think it's really going to determine where the Ed Carpenter Racing program is. We all know they're going through a tough rebuild right now. During this season, I know you all remember when they parted ways with Connor Daly and brought in Ryan Hunter-Reay to evaluate where their program was at, because they're going through a rebuild. If Ed Carpenter Racing can make some progress based on what we saw towards the end of this season, I actually saw some progress, from Rinus VeeKay and Ryan Hunter-Reay, both of those two cars towards the end of the season, like they were headed in the right direction. Because outside of the Indianapolis 500, those two cars have essentially been nowhere outside of the month of May. I think if they can get more consistent and back to the team that they were, when Joseph Newgarden was there, I think that would be really great for young Christian Rasmussen and Rinus VeeKay. He's going to be in a more senior driver role this time around. So a lot of responsibility is going to be on VeeKay in 2024. But overall, I think it's really great that Christian Rasmussen is going to be in IndyCar in 2024. So that's one young driver on the road to Indy. And now, Matt, we're going to talk about a highly touted young prospect on the road to Formula One.
Yeah, that's that upswing for ECR, of course, was all down to Joe getting his lap around Portland with Rinus and Ryan before the Portland Grand Prix. Yes, big news coming from European junior single-seater racing this week, with Mercedes junior driver Andrea Kimi Antonelli receiving a big promotion to Formula 2 next season in 2024 after winning the 2023 Formula Regional European Championship, which is the step below Formula 3. The highly touted 17-year-old Italian will race for the Prema team, skipping Formula 3 altogether, and compete in the second tier series on the road to Formula 1. Antonelli has been a winner at every level of his young racing career, winning multiple championships in karting before stepping up to cars. He's also won titles in Formula 4 in Italy and Germany, and won the Formula Regional Middle East Championship at the beginning of this year, and also picked up a gold medal at last year's FIA Motorsport Games at Paul Ricard in the F4 Cup. The Mercedes Junior is there, and he's been invested in a lot by Mercedes, in a generational talent, they say. Many believe he could be Lewis Hamilton's future replacement when the seven-time world champion retires. From Formula One photo on screen, courtesy of the Prema team. Despite Antonelli's instant success in junior categories and potential to be a future superstar in F1, do you fear Mercedes is moving him up the ladder system too quickly?
Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, but if we're looking at a stick and ball sports comparison, am I right when I say Kimi Antonelli is the Victor Wembanyama of motorsports, of how highly touted? I think that's kind of accurate. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, that's a name I've heard of. So yes, I wouldn't. This is like someone completely skipping college and going straight to the NFL from school, from high school. It's that kind of deal, missing out Formula 3. He's very, very good. I've been watching him over the last 18 months, I guess, and he absolutely smashed the field at the Motorsport Games last year to win that gold medal in F4. And this year's been winning races with Prema in Formula Regional. It's not the first time we've seen someone skip Formula 3. Valtteri Bottas didn't do GP3 back in the day. No, sorry, he didn't do GP2. He won GP3 and went straight to Formula 1. So it's not unheard of. I don't think Lance Stroll, he did the same, didn't he? Went from FIA, the old FIA
Yes.
European Free Championship, missed out F2 GP2 entirely, and went straight to Formula 1, although it's not working for Lance at the moment. These guys are being pushed through. He's very young, though. It's going to be interesting to see how he gets on in F2. Another driver story broke today, which we'll get to when you do your news headlines in a minute, in terms of F2 news. It's all coming together already in silly season for F2. But I'm liking this, and I hope they give him time. Prema are one of the top teams in F2 and in all of European junior single-seaters, as we know. And he's got the backing of Mercedes. And that was as soon as I saw this news, is exactly what I've said there in the script. Or could he be being lined up to replace Lewis in 2-3 years' time to be George's next teammate, I guess, if George Russell sticks around? So it's going to be interesting to see what they do with young Andrea.
Yeah. This kid is just phenomenal. I've been following his career as well for like the last couple of years, and everything he steps in, he wins immediately. And yeah, like you were saying, Matt, we've seen this before. We've seen drivers, completely dominate in these junior categories, and then skip a level and move up. But it seems like there's something different with Kimi Antonelli. He has that it factor. He's that generational talent. I know I basically compared him to Victor Wembanyama and all of that, but in other times you see someone completely dominant in a lower category like this, and then once they get to the top, they completely fall apart. And I know there's probably going to be a lot more media hype for Antonelli moving forward in the future. And it also reminds me of one of the drivers who participated in the Indy next postseason test just a little while ago. It's Colette from Brazil. I think he competed in Formula 3 this season. I remember a lot of people were calling him the next Ayrton Senna at one point, but as he's gone up the racing ladder, we haven't seen any resemblance, of him having that it factor, of him being worthy to be compared to Senna. I'm not sure what Antonelli's comparison would be right now, from driver to driver, but I certainly think he has the talent to be successful in Formula 2. Only time will tell if Mercedes is moving him up too soon, but I definitely think he's with the right team in Prema. They've dealt with many star drivers over the years, and Andrea Kimi Antonelli, he's going to be a future superstar in motorsports, as everyone believes. And we have also seen in other times when you move a driver up way too soon, sometimes that can end up derailing his career. But looking at Antonelli's track record, he might very well be next year's Formula 2 champion, and then he'll be ready to move up to Formula 1 at some point in a not so distant future. And if there's not a place for him at Mercedes in 2025, assuming he'd win the championship next year, not able to return the following year, Williams, they're thinking about keeping Logan Sargent for one more year. And if Logan still doesn't meet the targets next year, that could be a seat for Antonelli to slide into until Lewis Hamilton decides to walk away.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Antonelli if he does come in to F2 and go as well as he's done in all the other categories that he's come into over the last little while. Then Mercedes might have a problem on their hands because they're going to want to get him in an F1 seat pretty quickly. Of course, you'll be able to follow that developing story in the F2 Championship and, of course, on Grid Encore next season as part of our F2 coverage. Good evening to Adam, who says good comparison regarding Weminyama and Kimi Antonelli. Kobe, yes, it's good to see these, as you say, generational talents. Kai Collette was the man you're thinking of. He looked like he was going to be the next hot young thing coming through, but he's kind of plateaued a little bit this season. Got a couple of wins off the top of my head this year, but if he wasn't winning, he was a little bit nowhere in what was quite a competitive F3 championship this year. So we'll have to keep abreast of that one. Let's move on to this week's Grid Endurance Performance Index update in what was a extremely busy weekend. I've got lots to tell you about from the final really busy weekend of the season as the European season wound down. And it started with, it's actually on Friday, which we'll come to in a minute, but we'll start at Donington Park, which is not a million miles away from where I'm sat right now, for the final race of the British GT Championship. The race was won by Sandy Mitchell and Sean Balfe for the Lamborghini team. But Darren Leung, and with the stint of all stints from Dan Harper, dragged their Century Motorsport BMW through to finish second. It was enough to take the championship. Harper was on maximum attack and just passed everybody. It was like he was in a different class in GT3, and that's pretty hard to do. So congratulations to Mitchell and Balfe on the race win, and Leung and Harper on their championship. At Hockenheim over the weekend, we had the final rounds of ADAC GT Masters. Benjamin Hites and Marco Mappelli won the first race. Alain Valente and Ralph Aron won the second, but points were enough in both races for Elias Seppänen and Salman Awega to take the championship. Interesting to see what happens with ADAC GT Masters next year, because there wasn't very much take up for it this year. It may not return in 2024 because it's on the same package as the DTM and they run to fairly the same rules. And Thomas Preining for Porsche came out at the weekend at Hockenheim as the championship leader, and he dominated the weekend, won both races, and took home the championship. Another young man coming through in the GT ranks that we all need to be keeping an eye on. Congratulations to Thomas on a dominant weekend and the championship. I stated that the weekend started on Friday. That's because we had two European Le Mans Series races at Portimao over the weekend, one on Friday and one on Sunday. The Friday race was the race that should have happened at Imola back in the spring, but got pushed because the paddock was still being worked on. Marino Sato, Phil Hansen and Oliver Jarvis won the Friday race for United Autosports in LMP2. In LMP2 Pro-Am, Alexander Quagny, Malfi Jakobsen and Nico Lapierre were the winners there for Cool Racing. Torsten Kratz, Leo Wies and Oscar Tunyo won in P3. Christian Reed, Julian Andlauer and Giorgio Lavorato won in GTLM in the penultimate GTLM race. The final race in GTLM on the Sunday was won by the American Ryan Hardwick, Alessio Picciarello and his other American teammate Zachary Robichon. Matt Bell and Adam Ali won in P3. Francois Perrodo, Mathieu Vaxivier and Ben Barnicoat won in LMP2 Pro-Am. More about Ben Barnicoat shortly. And another win in the overall race for Marino Sato, Oliver Jarvis and Phil Hansen. So they won both races at the weekend for United, which does lead to a change in the points update, which we'll get to in a minute. The champions for ELMS, and there it is on screen. We'll just run through the champions in the ELMS Championship as that was the final round. Congratulations to Kiffin Simpson, Alex Lynn and James Allen for Algarve Pro Racing, winning the P2 Championship overall. Mathieu Vaxivier and Francois Perrodo with that win in Pro-Am for P2 won that championship. Adrian Schiller, Marcus Seibert and Alejandro Garcia won in LMP3 the championship. And Hardwick, Picciarello and Robichon after that win on Sunday came through to claim the GTLM Championship. I mentioned Marino Sato getting 2 victories, and there he is now, slots into 7th position. So that's 2 new entries in 2 weeks In the top 10, we've Helio Castroneves sliding in last week and Marino Sato sliding in this week. So that is the top 10. We have no grid EPI races this weekend for the first time since the middle of February. So the spreadsheet gets a rest as we roll on to look at the rest of the top half or the top portion of the point scorers. And then we have two very important races for the grid EPI the weekend after. The final race of Super GT at Motegi. And then we have also that weekend in Bahrain. On the Saturday, the final race of the WEC for 2023 and the fight between the two Toyotas, Hartley, Hirakawa and Buemi, Kobayashi, Conway and Jose Maria Lopez will come down to a crunch, and it depends on where that Hartley car finishes and the Kobayashi car finishes, basically to who wins the grid EPI for 2023. We'll keep you abreast of that when we get to it. We'll give you an update and a reminder of it on next week's show because we've got no point scoring races to talk about, but we'll give you the results as always on that in a couple of weeks. Now it's time for Kobe with the rest of the headlines from the week.
Thanks, Matt. Time for some more motorsports news from around the world. The FIA World Endurance Championship released the entry list for the annual rookie test in Bahrain. Looking at the most notable entries in the hypercar class, GTM champion Nico Veron will drive the Chip Ganassi Racing Cadillac prototype alongside Kiffin Simpson, who recently won the European Le Mans Series LMP2 championship and signed with Ganassi to race full-time in the NTT IndyCar Series in 2024. Portland, Oregon's very own Josh Pearson will get to test for Toyota Gazoo Racing, and joining him are Vassar Sullivan, IMSA GTD Pro drivers Jack Hawksworth and Ben Barnicoat. Newly announced full-time IndyCar driver Pietro Fittipaldi will test the number 38 Hertz Team Jota Porsche 963. Lila Wadeau and Robert Schwartzman will get behind the wheel of the Le Mans winning number 51 Ferrari F Corsa 499P, entry list courtesy of the WEC. Exodus ASP team will celebrate its 25th year anniversary in 2024 by testing themselves in a new championship. The GT World Challenge Europe regulars plans to compete in the FA World Endurance Championship LMGT3 class, fielding a pair of Lexus RCF GT3s. In the last 25 years, the team has fielded entries of 4 different manufacturers: Renault, Porsche, Ferrari, and Mercedes, as they've been well known in the last handful of years. Now they'll be on to the 5th manufacturer with Lexus next year. The team enters the WEC as the 2023 GT World Challenge Europe Endurance Cup champions with Timur Bogoslawski, Jules Gounon, and Raffaele Marciello. The layout for next year's Formula E Tokyo E-Prix has been unveiled. An 18-turn, 2.583-kilometer street circuit in Japan that will surround the Tokyo International Exhibition Center, which is the largest venue in Japan. This is also known as Tokyo Big Sight. Located only minutes away from downtown Tokyo, the track features 3 notable straights, technical sequences of tight corners, and high-speed combinations set against the Tokyo skyline in the background. We'll see the paddock area set up on the Tokyo Bay waterfront. For the very first time, the streets of Tokyo will be closed for a public road race and world championship event, graphic courtesy of Formula E. And here's the other young prospect Matt was referring to. Franco Colapinto will move up from Formula 3 to Formula 2 next year, staying with MP Motorsport as he moves up to the next level on the road to Formula 1. The Williams Racing Academy member recently finished 4th this year in the F3 Championship. This included 2 wins and 5 podiums in preparation of his 2024 F2 season. Colapinto will participate in the postseason test in Abu Dhabi. Colapinto said staying with his current team feels like the right move and believes this will give him an advantage that both sides already know each other so well. Graphic courtesy of MP Motorsport. 2023 ARCA Menards Series champion Jesse Love will drive full-time in the NASCAR Xfinity Series in 2024 with Richard Childress Racing. Love will replace Sheldon Creed in number 2 Whelen Chevrolet as Austin Hill's teammate. Leaving Toyota for Chevrolet, Love brings an impressive resume to RCR, winning 10 races during his championship-winning season in ARCA. He's also a 2-time ARCA West champion and the youngest champion in NASCAR history. Love will make his first appearance as an RCR driver in just a couple of days on Friday, October 27, at the team's Fan Day event. Graphic courtesy of Richard Childress Racing. In Supercars, the Blanchard Racing team confirmed its 2024 Supercars driver lineup ahead of this weekend's Gold Coast 500 and Surface Paradise. With Todd Hazelwood not returning to the team, Dunlop Super 2 competitor Aaron Love will move up to the main game to replace Hazelwood in the number 3 Cool Drive Auto Parts Ford Mustang. As the team expands to a 2-car operation next year, James Courtney will depart Tickford Racing and move over to Blanchard as Love's teammate. Courtney will drive the number 7 Ford Mustang and bring over the Snowy River Caravan's sponsorship from Tickford, photo courtesy of the Blanchard Racing team. Now, Matt, take it away with everyone's favorite game. Pick a winner. Got quite a few races tonight.
Yeah, busy weekend coming up. Just a couple of additions to your list there, Kobe, before we do pick a winner. Franco Colapinto also going to be doing the F2 races at Abu Dhabi at the end of the season. He's going to replace Jehan Daruvla, who is Formula Rebound. So all of our news stories intertwine tonight. So Colapinto will be in for the races and the test at the end of the season and then for next year. And just a shout out to Matthew Owens, who's watching. He's one of his favourite sponsors, Snowy River Caravans, moving across to BRT. And Matthew says Jesse Love is going to contend for some wins next year. Another big prospect lost by Toyota. Yes, there's been a lot of that going on over the last few weeks, and Adam agrees. Jesse Love will win in 2024 in the Xfinity Series. A solid choice. Who can make the solid choice this week? Because as you can see from the table there on screen, we are still tied up at the top between my co-host and Alex on 48 points on top of the pick a winner standings. We've got 3 races to pick from this evening. Races / events. We'll start with the next round of the penultimate round of the season for the World Rally Championship, the Central European Rally, a brand new event on the calendar for this year. It starts tomorrow with a stage at lunchtime in the centre of Prague in the Czech Republic, or Czechia as it's now called, and then races across the borders of Czechia, Germany and Austria over the weekend. So it's going to be really interesting to see how all that logistically works, but we need to pick a winner. I'm going to go with Sebastian Ogier because he loves new events and he's back in the Toyota team this weekend. So Ogier is my pick for WRC.
Whenever he's in the field, I have to go with him. Sebastian Ogier, go get me that lead.
Interesting to see who Alex picks. We'll have to keep an eye out for the Kobe and Alex picks all weekend across social media. We've also got supercars. Finally got round to finish watching Bathurst off at the beginning of the week, and it was excellent. And where they are at one of the best street circuits in the world this week. Don't at me on that. The Gold Coast 500 is back, and race 1 is on Saturday around the streets of Surfers Paradise. And I think Shane Van Gisbergen continues to roll. Red Bull 888 very good on the street circuits, as we know, got a win at the opening round at Newcastle. I'm going to go with Shane Van Gisbergen to win on Saturday on the Goldie.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite supercars race weekends of the entire year. I absolutely love Surfers Paradise racing here on the Gold Coast. And I promise I'm not copying him, Matt, but I also think Shane Van Gisbergen is going to keep the good times rolling, and he's going to really start taking the fight and eating into Brody Kostecki's championship lead. I think we're going to be in for an epic championship battle that's going to come down to the very final race on the streets of Adelaide.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Hopefully those two, Kostecki and Shane, can keep it going to Adelaide, which is at the end of November. Can't wait to see how this championship battle runs out. And talking of championship battles, MotoGP continues. What an epic it was a couple of weeks ago in Indonesia. The rain out, the strange weather event at Phillip Island where we had a Grand Prix on Saturday and no sprint race. Hopefully we will get a sprint race in this weekend. They're in Thailand at the Chang International Circuit in Buriram. Sprint race, I'm going to go again with Jorge Martin. He keeps picking up my sprint race points and keeping me in the sort of outside hunt. I'm 11 points back, but you keep picking me up the points, so I'm going to continue to roll with Jorge Martin for the sprint race.
And I'm going to make our picks unanimous and also go with Jorge Martin for the sprint races. Yeah, and Adam Limerick agrees with both of us. OJ, Shane Van Gisbergen, and Jorge Martin. And if you're just joining the stream, be sure to share your picks for pick a winner for the World Rally Championship, Central European Rally, Race 1 on the Gold Coast of Supercars, and MotoGP in Thailand. Now, Matt, going to throw it over to you for your hots and knots for this week.
And of course, we've got the Mexican Grand Prix to add on to that list, although we'll get the picks in from the team across the weekend. Don't forget, you get your picks in on the social media with all of it. Quickly, while we're on the back of pick a winner, I wrote my tweet post. I put Johan Zarco's name in and I scribbled it out and changed it. And what a point that would have been to pick up last weekend at Phillip Island. Never mind. Hots and Knots, I'm going to go solo this week. Hot, Homestead, again, superb. Best track on the NASCAR schedule. What a race. It was good at the beginning, then we had a bit of a lull, and then all the madness with the Larson crash and the Hamlin and Truex falling out of the race, and Christopher Bell coming through to win. I thought that was terrific. Knots, mentioned supercars. We're heading towards the penultimate round of their season on the Gold Coast. It's November next week, and we still don't have a calendar. We're hoping to get one this weekend for next year. Also, World Superbike, the same. It's their last race of the week of the season this weekend at Jerez. We will get their calendar tomorrow because I've seen that is coming out. So at least we can get one calendar tomorrow. But supercars, please sort your act out and get your calendar out. It's all been tied up with the fact that the Newcastle 500 is going away for next year. And it looks like we're going to have a Bathurst sprint race to start the season in February, the week after the 12-hour. So that is going to be an absolute festival, which is potentially hot, but it's not that we still don't have a calendar. Also a knot, just before the show, I haven't watched the Grand Prix yet from COTA, but I did watch the final race of Formula One Academy, which was great to have it on Vision for a change this weekend. Congratulations to Marta Garcia on winning the championship. But the lovely wife Vicky came in from doing the shopping and sat down next to me while I was watching the final race, and we had a quick discussion about it. And she'd seen that I was watching it over the weekend. Watched the first race live on Saturday, and she said, "Is this a mixture of female drivers and male drivers?" And I said, "Oh no, it's all female." Well, why is it called Formula One Academy then? Because that's a broad brush. And I touted out the casual fan notice that no one knows what it is until you tell them, kind of thing. Whereas F1 is F1 and the World Endurance Champions is this, but we have to ask the question of Formula One Academy if you don't know why it couldn't have been a bit better named. Is interesting, and I think we've talked about the calendar over the shows of the week for next year. It just doesn't look good, but good to see it on, and they put a good few races on at COTA at the weekend. A little bit light on the ground on Hots and Knots, and light on the ground on Heads tonight, but hopefully the whole team will be back together next week. What's hot, Adam says, the F1 Grand Prix at COTA MotoGP in Australia, and supercars back on the Gold Coast. Yes, that is the highlight of the weekend for me. Matthew Owen says, hot all of the circumstances around the end of Homestead, having Hamlin and Truex below the cut line going into Martinsville. They now have to go all out against each other. Sunday will be big time. It will. And if you decide to watch the Mexican Grand Prix at the weekend instead of NASCAR at Martinsville, which is on at the same time, then shame on you. I'm sure we'll be talking about Martinsville and probably the Mexican Grand Prix on the show next week, but that's pretty much all we've got time for this week. So I'll hand it back to Kobe and he can take us out.
Yeah, and taking a look at our upcoming schedule, Saturday, back on the air for Grid Live pre-race at noon Eastern. Sunday, Grid Live wrap-up 90 minutes after the NASCAR Cup Series race at Martinsville Speedway. Monday, Grid Live Encore, a full recap of the Xfinity Series race at Martinsville and more. Please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you so much for helping us reach the milestone of now 760 subscribers. Now you can help us reach our new milestone of 800 subscribers on the road to 1,000, getting closer to that each day. Don't forget to hit the bell icon to get the notifications. Follow all our social media platforms and visit gridranking.com. Take 5 minutes to invest in Grid Network through Patreon. Join Colin, Mark, Deshelle, Robin, David, and Matthew and invest in each month in the Grid Network. We encourage you to join the amazing group of people keep us on the air. Once we hit $500 per month, we can start sending our team to the track to cover more racing and continue expanding our coverage. Link in the video description below. If you want to do a one-time donation, click on the Buy Me a Coffee link. Get your name on the board and invest as much as you want. Consider buying a specific on-air personality a cup of coffee, and they'll thank you here in the air. You can also support us by donating during our live streams through Super Chat. For Matt White from Grid Endurance Performance Index, I'm Kobe Lambert from the Podium Finish. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for watching us right here on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe and check out some of our other videos, including Life on the Grid, where we interview folks from the motorsports industry. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.